I'm very pleased to address such a distinguished audience, unfortunately only in English. My Serbian is very poor. And, well, of course, as everybody these days, we have to start with crisis. Growth in Europe falters, solvency crisis gathers pace, and if we're looking at the latest figures for next year's outlook, we are talking about only 1% growth in the SEE4 region, and we're talking about even less than 1% in the EU area, which may even mean in 1 or 2 quarters recession. Unemployment is rising and very high, up to 30% in some countries of the region. Consumer spending is down, NPLs are rising, and it may mean that the worst is yet to come. But obviously, as any crisis, the opportunity is behind, and it may well be that the region is using the crisis for deep structural reforms which are needed and which would help to unleash the potential of the region. Because it's a pity if the crisis is not only overshadowing the opportunities, but is also diminishing the attractiveness of the region for local and for foreign investors. Hypo is a truly local regional bank with more than 15 billion of assets and a truly committed investment in the region. And that's why I'm moving on, and I would like to point out 10 reasons why I believe that the commitment to the region, despite all crisis indicators, is still there and fully justified. First reason, competitiveness, cheap labor. Investors always find it attractive to come to a country with cheap labor, but obviously this is not a sustainability in itself. It needs more to have sustainable, competitive labor conditions to attract foreign direct investment, and it's crucial to have such foreign direct investment to bring new technologies and to transfer know-how to the region. There is plenty of room for productivity enhancing policies, both in the private and even more in the public sector, for example, through competitive, sustainably competitive wages. Reason 2, there is a huge catch-up potential. And talking about the banking industry, there are 3 main reasons. 1, we have experienced during the past 10 years that those who are lagging behind most in GDP, in absolute GDP numbers, grow most. Good example, Slovenia, which was relatively high 10 years ago, expanded GDP by approximately 3.3%, whereas Serbia, which lagged behind, was 4.7%, so almost 50% higher in terms of GDP growth. Second reason, the banking penetration is very low compared to the EU average. Only 85% of the 15-year-old and older have a bank account. And third reason, banking assets compared to GDP is at approximately 30% of EU average in Serbia. And although it will take probably 3 decades or so to catch up fully, you see the potential and it multiplies. Number 3, there is a hugely skilled labor force throughout your region. Technological readiness together with the skilled labor force makes SEE an attractive place to invest. However, the downside, there's a lot of unemployment, specifically among the younger generation, and of course this may lead many skilled people to leave the country to find work abroad. And foreign direct investment is also one of the means to slow down the damaging brain drain from your countries. Reason 4, productivity gains. We believe that there are a number of areas where fostering productivity is worth looking at. This includes public spending, tax reforms, growth enablers and investment into growth enablers such as infrastructure, which we've heard many times today in prior speeches, deregulation in labor and products and credit markets, to name some of those. Finally, of course, infrastructure investment is also important as a bargaining power for foreign direct investments. And this may also put some pressure on private companies and corporations to join the public sector on restructuring and raising more equity and making corporations more stable. Reason 5, comparatively low public debt. We're talking about mid 40% numbers. This is significantly below Maastricht threshold criteria of 60%, and this is significantly below, as you can read almost daily now, compared to the EU average and also compared to Austria. Austria is now talking about mid-70s and is worried about reaching 80%. However, with thresholds of public debt, one has to be very careful because obviously the debt capacity depends not only on growth but also on the premium that you pay on public debt in relation to your rating. Reason number 6, intra-regional trade opportunities. It's a surprise when you look at numbers, but when you compare Hungary to Croatia, for example, you see that Hungary does approximately twice as much, 20% of its GDP, with its neighboring countries compared to Croatia, where it's only 10%. Croatia has been catching up during the past few years, and specifically catching up with the EU neighbors, Slovenia and Hungary. Nevertheless, we strongly believe that EU integration will boost not only internal growth and GDP growth, but will also boost intra-regional trade, where we believe that there is much more potential than was used and has been used until so far. Reason number 7, the stock of foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment, as I strongly believe, is a major source of economic growth in the Southeast European region. And what it shows is that Serbia has done specifically well and has increased foreign direct investment year by year by a rate of approximately between 5 and 6%, which is, interestingly enough, almost double of the Slovenian number. We believe, and our forecasts show this, that SEE has a very good chance to outperform foreign direct investment of Central and Eastern Europe, because obviously there is also a significant catch-up potential. Reason number 8 for being committed to the region: geography. Southeastern Europe has always been at the crossroad between Western Europe and Turkey. It is today. It's a bridge between the two regions, and we believe that with hopefully the infrastructure investment that your countries are planning to roll out, the role of being at the crossroad is properly rolled out as well. One example, I believe it was named today already, Fiat's investment in Kragujevac. It will, and its success will obviously heavily depend on the infrastructure, on the one hand to supply the plant with raw material, and on the other hand to dispatch of finished cars to the markets reliably and obviously also cost effectively. What makes infrastructure investments especially attractive is two aspects. On the one hand, there is money available, co-financing opportunities from the European Union, the European Investment Bank, the EBRD, alongside commercial banks, alongside locally available funds, which is especially important when finance is scarce and when we're talking about a credit crunch and where we're talking about commercial banks having to increase their equity, which automatically reduces their capacity to lend money and makes lending more expensive. And on the other hand, there are, or there will in the short time, be well-established concession schemes which make infrastructure investments even more attractive in the long run. Reason number 9, natural resources. We believe that there is plenty of natural resources, specifically relating to Serbia when it comes as a very, very important agricultural producer. But also we believe that an emerging key sector for potential investors is the energy generation with a huge potential, which according to a study of German RWE is, for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina equal to Turkey. Unsurprisingly, Turkey is one of the key investors in that area. And we believe there is a huge demand for investment for refurbishment and also for new capacities, and the SEE grid with being fully integrated into the European grid is a good basis for a powerful boost by investment into the energy sector. Last and 10th reason, the EU integration. We believe that the membership within the EU is a key factor and remains a critical, politically and also economically important development for your countries. For those who have not yet joined, Croatia has been given the green light for joining, hopefully by mid-2013. Serbia might become a candidate by the end of even this year. And despite the apparent slowdown, not only for reasons that have its base here in the region, but also for reasons that lie within the existing EU member countries, despite that slowdown, we believe that the process should be faster than it currently is. We believe that with the elections looming, there might be a window of opportunity and to speed up the process and to ensure that the boosting power of EU membership, we're talking about 1 to 2% GDP growth in the first year of EU membership from experience, that boosting power should not get lost. Now, what is my conclusion? Apart from the crucial EU process, I strongly believe there are a number of local improvements that can be implemented without or before joining the EU. A few ideas. I'm sure I share with you the conviction that 50% of the population economically not active, 40% or 30 to 40% of youth unemployment in certain areas is simply unacceptable. You will definitely need further improvement of business climate, strengthening the rule of law and specifically the law enforcement, because investors would want a level playing field and they have good rights to ask for that. Tax code reform will support investors and capital investment and companies, and obviously this will in certain areas be at the cost of the consumer and will be difficult to implement politically. However, if this is accompanied by growth strategies and strengthening of foreign direct investments, we are sure that this will, after all, sustainably boost not only the economic development, but after all, the wealth of the individuals in your countries. We also believe that credible plans of containing the low debt to GDP ratio as a powerful platform to a healthy economy is absolutely vital to reduce the risk premium on the capital markets and in the long run to boost the rating of the countries upwards. More competition, less overregulation, better corporate governance standards, and boost in education and infrastructure. And last not least, as I've mentioned before, an energy policy that supports efficiency and stability. With all the severe deterioration of the economy that we're currently facing in the region and beyond, the call is on the governments to reduce their expenditures, and this will also entail reduction in social spending. However, we believe if such austerity packages are accompanied by convincing growth strategies and liberalization of economies, reform of tax system, we strongly believe that this will ultimately favor economy and consumers, people, and social peace and freedom. Based on that, my conclusion is that there is many reasons beyond the 10 reasons that I've given to you to be committed to the region, to be committed to the countries. We are with more than 15 billion of assets, and be assured that we will continue in being fully committed to the region. Thank you for your attention.